Hello and welcome to the complete introduction to WeVideo. Now WeVideo, if you're unfamiliar, is an online cloud-based video editing program that allows you to edit from just about any device. This video is going to walk you through just about everything you need to know to get started with WeVideo. However, we're just going to scratch the surface. It's kind of a longer video, so make sure you pay attention to those chapter markers and only watch the sections you need in order to get started and complete whatever task you are looking to accomplish. But thanks for tuning in, and let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing you must do when getting started with WeVideo is finding and accessing this document. It'll be linked in the video description below. You will definitely need to do this to unlock a lot of premium features that you otherwise would not have access to. Okay, so once you've set up your premium account through GUHSD, make sure that from this point forward, whenever you come back to the WeVideo website, go ahead and click Login and select Login with Google. That's going to make sure that it syncs right up with your school Google account. So your recent edits will be here, but you can also start from a template. My recommendation is to always start with a blank edit. With these templates, while they're a good start, a lot of times you end up just spending more time deleting things you don't need than adding things you do need. So when you get started with a blank edit, it's going to ask you two different formats. Horizontal or square. Horizontal being best for, like it says right here, TV, computer, or broadcast. And the next one here, square, social media. Basically, this is your Instagram 1:1 square, whereas this is a 16:9 ratio. For 99.9% of your projects, you're going to want to select horizontal. So once you're in WeVideo, your basic layout kind of looks like this. Down here, this panel down here, these are your timelines. Okay, so that's basically how you're going to compose your finished video. Up here is your project panels. So that's essentially your finished video. You'll be able to see in this area right here. Right now, it's a blank screen because, well, we haven't started editing yet. And then over here is your source panel. So this is where all of your resources are going to live. So we're going to go right in order across all these drop-down tabs, starting with this little star icon. So what this is going to give you a vast array of different stock images and stock video. So basically, if you are working on any specific project and you want to type in a topic, so let's say tropical beach. So you're doing a project on the tropics. They're going to give you all kinds of different stock videos that you can pull from. So this one here looks like about 20 seconds. You can see here that was not a 20-minute video, right? That's 20 seconds. And you can drag it down and hit play. And there it is, something like that. Now, remember that these are stock videos, so they're not going to have a whole lot of action. The whole purpose is just to have some type of visual with maybe a little bit of motion, okay? It's not going to be anything too specific. If you like it, you can use it. If you don't, you just hit this little trash button and it goes away. You can take a look at another one. There's all kinds of further edits you can do with this, but that's essentially, I like the movement in that one, the way it kind of zooms through the trees there. That's a good shot. So let's say that's something that I want to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. If I want this later in my video, I can add other things in front of it. Now you can see here that this is overlapping. So once you drop this in, you can either trim to fit or insert and push. And what that's going to do, trim to fit means it's basically going to cut it where these two videos are overlapping, or you can select this insert and push, and it's going to push that other video out of the way. You see how you've got both of them there like so. Now, keep in mind up here when you're looking at your project, the finished video of your project, if you're worried about the image quality, this is a essentially a rough edit. Okay, so it's not completely rendered. So if you're worried about the pixelation or the image quality, once you're finished and you export it at full image quality, it'll come out much more clear and much more crisp than what you're actually seeing in real time as you edit. So now that we have a better idea about importing content from the WeVideo database, let's go ahead and jump over to adding our own content, original content. So it's the next tab over. So jump over here, and this is where all your personal media is going to live. You can see I've got some various screencasts, some webcam in data, some other miscellaneous audio files, things of that nature. So let's talk about how we upload all that. So your first option right here is this little green cloud, and that's to import media. If you have anything living on your hard drive, you can go ahead and just drag and drop. However, if you're working from your Chromebook, it's probably pretty doubtful that you have anything along those lines. So if you do have any original content, maybe it's a photo you from the internet that you saved to Google Drive. Maybe it's actual video that you've filmed on your phone and then subsequently uploaded to Google Drive. It's already linked with your school account, so you can upload from your Google Drive. Just click through your various um, folders to find that content. If you are importing from social media, you can or Dropbox. However, that's probably pretty doubtful that you're doing it for a school project. The other option, you can actually record right within WeVideo. You can do a screencast like I'm doing now, or a webcam. Just make sure that when you do that, you do allow WeVideo to access your microphone, record your screen, and access your webcam. Those are all pretty important steps to enable to do that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about this last and probably pretty common feature that you're going to use, and that's the voice recorder. And this is for any type of um, uh, voiceover that you might want for your project. So let's say that this second clip right here, I want to record some type of voiceover regarding this shot. So I'm going to line up my playhead to the beginning of that video clip, and then I'm going to select the voiceover option. I'm going to hit preview while recording. Anything else, if you've got any built in music, things like that, you definitely want to mute. So go ahead from there, hit record. And now, as you're watching the video, you can talk and talk and talk, whatever content you want to add. When you are done, hit stop. If you stuttered or something like that, you can preview it. But if you stuttered, this is when you probably want to just hit the record button and start again. But if you're content with it, you can save it, and lo and behold, it comes up just like so. Here's my voiceover. It's on a new timeline actually. So you can see that it's added this voiceover one option. If it's not in the right place, if you want to move it down, you can. If you want to move it back over here, you can. So that's always an option as well. Okay, so that's all about adding your own media to a WeVideo project. So now that we've discussed importing images from the stock uh, video options from WeVideo and your own personal media, now let's work a little bit out of order and talk about some of these graphics here, this last option on all of our tabs. And these are going to be video backgrounds and maybe some solid colors and things like that. So let's say that we wanted a title at the beginning of this. So what we can do is we can select some of these videos like so and drag them in and insert and push again. And now what that does is creates kind of a motion background uh, for some type of title in the front. If you're not interested in any of the motion, you can do just blank, type video as well. You also have some overlays. Those are might be a little bit more creative type graphics and some frames. I know that we haven't discussed what the other uh, timelines are for, but essentially, if you bring any of these options over the top, what you'll get is here. I'll give you an example. What you get is uh, some type of overlay over the top. And then lastly, as far as content, adding content is concerned, we can add audio right here. And these actually have, you can select sound effects, which are iffy, free music. There are all kinds of music that you can pull from there, as well as a larger database of premium music, which you have access to as a result of the premium subscription. And once you select your video, you can bring it in to your timeline by simply dragging and dropping. Just make sure that you make it into the audio timeline. So there it is. Those are the basics of adding content. So now let's talk about our last option in our menu up here, our drop down tabs. And that's to add transitions between videos. So let's take a look here at the difference some of these transitions can make. If you look at what is existing right now, it's basically just a straight cut from one clip to the next, one scene to the next. And it doesn't leave really a whole lot of creativity in there. So just like anything else in WeVideo, a lot of this is just drag and drop. So you want a dip to black between these two uh, options. So now let's go back and take a look at how that looks. And you can see that slow fade. These can get you can get pretty creative with these. They've got a whole lot of different options in here. Uh, I would caution you to not get too carried away with these. So you can see how if you had that in one scene and the next one, you're going to switch over to something like that. It can get a little bit carried away. So my kind of rule of thumb is to stick to a lot of the cross blurs or fades or the dip to black or dip to white. Those types of things tend to be the most normal, if you will. If that's not what you're going for, if you're going for something a little bit more creative, those options are there for you. Let's talk about editing a little bit. And the first thing to be aware of are all these different tracks on your timeline. So you can see you've got video one, audio one, voiceover, and then up above it, video two. And then you can actually add even more tracks on top if needed, like a video three file. So what that is going to do is basically anything that is above the video track. Let's talk about video only right now. Anything that is above, like in video two or video three, it's going to uh, show that content on top. So you can see in my playhead here. Let's go ahead and mute that. You can see in my playhead here that we've got. Let's mute this one as well for now. We've got this video of a drone flying over the beach, okay? But if we want to cut away to a different photo, all you have to do is add it on top and you can see what happens. Now you've got this flyover scene. And then once it gets to that playhead, it's going to cut to this other clip and then back to that. Okay, so and then on top of that, if you want to add another file, so let's say that we're going to add some type of graphic and we want something like this over the top. Now we've got a border around that photo as well. Okay, you could get so carried away at a fourth track. Okay, let's see what other kind of overlays we could add here. And something like that. We can offset it just a touch. And now we have something that would look like this. Let's see what happens. Okay, cool. All right. And there it goes. Now, what if you want it to end right here? You see that I've overlaid it just a touch, and now it carries it too long into that next scene. It's too long into that next scene. It's pretty easy. All you have to do is come up here, hit the split section. I've got this. I'm working on this file right here. I hit that. I select that second clip that I no longer need, and now that is gone. So we get something that looks like this. Okay. Now let's talk about editing some of these video files themselves. That's a good point here. So let's look down here. Let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at editing some of these video files themselves. The first thing that you can do is actually select a fade in and fade out, but as far as seconds go. But what I tend to prefer to do is simply click, and if you add, see this green line up at the top of your video file. That is allows you to edit the opacity or how transparent something is. So you can see that I dropped this down to 0%. So basically, it is going to be at like a black screen. And here I brought it up to 100%. And what that's going to do is give you kind of a slow fade in, something like that. And here's an even slower fade in. If you want something that is a little bit more of a quick fade in, you just make that line a little bit steeper. And that's going to be something that's hardly even noticeable. There it goes. You can do the same thing with audio files. So let's say that we've got this audio file, and if we hit play, it kind of startles you. You want to ease into that a little bit. So what you can do is select these files, do something like that, bring that down, and give your audience a nice fade in like so. Okay, and now we're starting to look like a little bit of a video. Now, on that note, let's take a look here and see what happens when we've got uh, an audio file and a voiceover at the same time. So let's bring that voiceover back into, and that simply won't fly, right? Like the music is far too distracting. So you do have one option. You can just go ahead and delete that specific section. Okay, trim at both ends and delete everything in between. And now you end up with something like this. Now, but that might not be exactly what you're after. So I'm going to hit Control Z and undo all those trims. So instead, let's do this. Let's add another one of those points, audio points, a second one, and 3 and 4. And this is going to make perfect sense in just a minute. So those inside markers, we're going to bring those down to next to 0. And now what we've done is we've brought those audio levels down to a point where they're still in the background, uh, but now they are not quite so obnoxious. And now you can see how you can intermix both uh, voiceovers and audio into your project. We're essentially at one of the last features, and that's actually editing video and images directly. So instead of just a simple fade in and fade out, let's go ahead and double click on this video file and see some of the things that we can do to manipulate it. So of course, what you can do is you can scale it up, you can scale it back. Of course, be aware that if you scale it back, you're going to end up with some kind of black screen. But those are options. So you can also play with the color a little bit. You can play with the brightness, the contrast, saturation, drop the hue, up the temperature, and then you get something kind of interesting like so. There it is. Okay. Something like that. If you play with all this and you just totally mess it up, you hit the trash can and all that goes back to normal. So that is an option. Another one which you might use a little more often are editing some of these photos. Now, I got rid of those other overlays, and because they were a bit distracting. But what we can do is we can actually animate this a little bit. So we can always add a fade in and a fade out, but we can also add a scale. So right now, our scale is, you know, uh, right about there. That's the full screen. But at the end, let's say that we want it zoomed in a little bit more. So what we can do is up that scale at the end. So what you can see here, it had that scaling effect, which you can also do is change this a little bit so it focuses directly on him. And here's what you end up with. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our video and see how it turns out. So one of the things that you will probably want to add at some point are text overlays, whether it be a title, a subtitle, something like that. So here we've got one last option right here, and that's a text. Let's just do a simple text overlay. You know the principles. If you want it on top, all you got to do is drag it over and add it like so. And now you've got that text overlay. To edit that, all you have to do is double click, okay? And right in here, you can change what it says. Okay, you can change the font. Okay, you can change the colors. There are all kinds of things. You can also change some of the graphics. So if you want, maybe it's a little too small and you want it bigger. Maybe it's a little too large, you want it smaller. If you want to change the positioning, you can. If you want it a little bit higher up, you can also, instead of dealing with the actual X and Y axis, you can drag it and place it anywhere you like. So that's adding text. So let's go ahead and talk about something that's a little bit outside of editing, and that's sharing your project. Now, WeVideo does have the capabilities of some sharing for editing purposes. So if you, first off, let's rename our video. Let's go ahead and name this whatever your project video is. I'm just going to call this sample. What you can do, you can come in here and in your projects, you go ahead and find that. And here's our sample project. What we can do is share this. Now, if you select add members slash groups, that's going to give you a list of just about everybody in the entire district, including teachers and students. So uh, that is maybe not advisable. What I would advise you do is invite them with a link. So if you're the creator of the group project, go ahead and copy this link just like so. Maybe email it or put it in some kind of shared document, Google Docs, something like that. Now, remember, just because it is a shared project, it is not quite like a Google Doc. You cannot edit in real time. So if one person logs in, it's going to boot someone else out. So only one person at a time can be in WeVideo editing, and that's just the nature of it. Having said that, it's pretty incredible that WeVideo, this whole program is cloud based with these sharing capabilities. It's pretty revolutionary for this type of project or for this type of software. So that is a pretty convenient option for sharing within a group. When you're done and you want to share it for viewing purposes, you come up here to select finish. Go ahead and if you've got the option, let's go ahead and make it 720. It's not the most, it's not 1080 or 4K or anything like this, but let's go ahead and bump it up to 720. Give it a proper title and then select destination. Do you want to put it in YouTube or Google Drive? I would advise one of those two at least. It you can technically save it just right in WeVideo and share the viewing right in WeVideo, uh, but I would select at least one of those. So from there, go ahead and hit finish. Once it's there, it'll upload into your Google Drive. It'll email you when it's done rendering, and you can turn in and share the link with your teacher. And you have successfully made a WeVideo.